Oh, nice.
Extremely cool.
Where else did we see? We saw that same artist over at.
Yeah, they've got them at several places.
Cuban guy, but Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we
didn't
saw
realize
the same guy has some art up at.
Got a studio over on Memorial, but he's got a lot of big art around town and stuff.
Oh, see, there's me speaking.
Share. Yeah, but if I share now public, I think it
Like and
shares
share.
it as Smokin and Toastin.
Well, you might be doing it redundant with me, but I'm pretty sure I shared it. Yeah, it's showing up on mine.
Okay, I see it now. It says live.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So and even if Smokin and Toastin shares it, you could probably go to your own page and it'll say Smokin and Toastin did it. I don't know. I might just be talking. Anybody out there that's better at this than I am, help me out. See, I'm reaching out now.
All right.
So,
Yeah, so it came up as my name.
Oh, okay, cool.
Cool.
Perfect. All right, that's a good thing.
Awesome. All right, we ready to record?
Yes, I think we are. Where did Mr. Manny go?
Mr. Manny, come on over. Come on down.
Manny,
Hi,
do you
everybody
have,
on Facebook.
Do you have cold drinks like water or sodas? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to grab something cold before we start. So don't. Thank you so much. Coke is great. Thank you. Much appreciated, sir. Thank you so much.
And since we have stuff for all the other segments, do you want to start off first segment talking about Cigar and that?
I think so. We'll kind of open like we normally do and kind of take care of business. But yeah, we'll bring Manny in, have him tell us about the rum and then the cigars as we learn it. So
I'm starting my research now.
that's it. It's important.
that's what I like about you. You're a man that takes it very seriously
I just
and doesn't want to go
dive
into
right
the.
in. We don't have to talk about it. I'm just going to dive right in and go for
All
it.
right. That is you, yes. Oh, and one quick thing, Manny, about the mics. These mics are designed kind of like the singer of a band, so you don't want to be out here or even here. You want to be right here. You can almost like rest it on your chin.
Okay.
And it would
Not
be best
this
because if you get out here, you'll sound really, really soft. Yeah. And I talk really loud, so I'll drown you out. We don't want that to happen. All right. Ready, gents? Press that there till it gets.
You got your timer?
I do.
Oh, so we do this in 5 segments. We're going to set the timer for 11.
5 segments of about
minutes.
11 to 12 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
And so we'll take a break in between each one, talk about what we're going to do in the next segment, in between, and then we'll be ready to go. Hello, Facebook Live. What up? Ready? Here we go. Adam, you ready? Greetings, my friend. Hola. Welcome to Smokin and Toastin. We are the radio program that is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We're going to enjoy some of all of those today as we get into show number 61, because we're smoking live at El Cubano Cigars in League City, Texas. My name is Cruz. I am your erstwhile host, along with my good friend and partner, Mr. Ian Barry. How are you, bud?
Today, man?
Yeah, you're looking dapper.
I feel dapper, actually.
Yeah, you got kind of that dapper vibe about you.
Contacts in today. That's all it is.
It's looking good. It's looking
Trying
good.
new ones. I've got those mono vision ones, so one eye's closed and one eye's
that's
far.
what mine does too. So if my eyes cross at any time during the Facebook Live broadcast, just blame it on the contacts.
Right.
It's not because I'm
it's
just
not
weird.
The rum.
Right. That's right. Want to mention that we are brought to you by the fine folks at B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, soon to be open in Fort Worth, Texas, and we're excited because we're going to be planning a road trip
Definitely a road
go
trip.
live and check out the new location.
I
But,
picture us like that scene in the Muppets where we're like moving right along.
yes, I picture almost more the holiday vacation, holiday road, or was that just the regular vacation? I don't remember now. But yes,
so many of those.
it'll be something like that. So, but we're live today at El Cubano Cigars in League City, Texas. My first time to walk in this place, and I have to tell you, Ian, this is a very different kind of cigar lounge and store. I will say this, and this is not it's not a critique of your typical cigar lounge, but many of them are almost interchangeable. In other words, you could change the sign on the door, and it wouldn't be that much different. They're very, very nice,
same, right?
This space is completely different from any cigar lounge and shop that I've ever been in.
You know what this? I was looking around thinking of it, and it's called El Cubano, and so when you walk in, you got these garage doors kind of up at the front. They've built this place out. It's a nice big open space. It's not like a cloistered area. There's no like secretive areas. It's kind of nice, big, and open and friendly. But honestly, it's almost like a really ultra classy ice house kind of feel.
Yes,
in here.
I know what you mean. It's like somebody took an ice house and like added some really nice wood and paneling and some super comfortable chairs and made it more than just your typical ice house, but still with that kind of laid back vibe, and I really like
it's got. And this bar over here, we'll have to take a picture of that.
Oh, we definitely
this bar
will.
that they have in here is fantastic,
which I understand is just for decoration. Although I will say, and we're going to bring Manny Lopez from El Cubano
but
on
those
here in
guys
a
don't
moment.
look like they're using it for decoration.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, and Manny told me before we started the show, it's just for decoration, but then he produced a bottle of rum and poured us some, so maybe not just for decoration. Manny Lopez is the proprietor. Manny, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks
So
for
nice to
having
have
me.
you, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming out today.
We have been hearing about El Cubano for quite some time, and so this is our first visit for both of us, and we're really excited to be here.
We're excited about you guys being here as well.
Now, tell me, this is a new location for
That's
you?
correct.
Were you in a smaller
That's
spot
correct.
before?
We were in a smaller spot before. We opened the store in 2006. We're all Cuban family owned, 5 generations in the tobacco business I am, and my father over there is the 5th generation, of course, all from Cuba. In Cuba we grew tobacco and hand-rolled cigars, so when we came to the United States we kind of brought that talent with us and kind of incorporated and brought it here to America and kind of sharing it with our friends here in Galveston County and Harris County and the state of Texas.
Well, this is really interesting because you find a number of these kind of stories, let's say, in Florida.
That's right.
Where you
South
find,
Florida, it's very
Miami
common.
and
That's
even
right.
Tampa, Ybor City, that
Exactly,
area.
exactly.
You'll find the Cuban families that relocated and then began kind of like spinning up their cigar craft in the U.S. But I don't know really of another one certainly not in the greater Houston area.
No, there's really
Texas.
not. There's only 2 federally licensed and state licensed cigar manufacturer in Texas, us being one, and then there's one in Austin.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah, I think I've been to that shop
Yeah.
too in Austin, down
on
off of
6th Street. Yes, that's correct.
Yes,
So-
I have. Well, so this makes you guys really different. Now, your humidor, obviously, you've got your products, you've got
That's correct.
other cigar lines.
Only our
in there as well.
we do 19 blends, about 110 different cigars that we manufacture. Our factory's in Texas City. We have another lounge like this that's tied in with the factory in Texas City. So, but we only carry our brand,
So you
only
only
the
carry yours?
only
How
the
cool is
Cubano
that?
brand. Yes,
This is such a cool idea. So
it's we're basically a boutique cigar manufacturer.
Well,
is what
this is-
I consider us.
this is so cool, and I have to say a little bit daring because to open a place of this size and to count on the kind of traffic that you would have to support a place of this size. And even though you mentioned a lot of different cigars and different lines, this is all your own stuff. I mean, you've got to be pretty confident in the
That's it.
quality of your cigars.
Well, you're going to smoke them today, so you'll be the one that'll let me know.
I'm already doing research on that right now.
All right, so tell you brought these cigars over for us from the humidor.
Right.
Tell us what this is that we're smoking, that Ian's smoking,
Okay,
and I'm
yeah,
about
this
to
is
smoke.
the Manny 409. It's the newest cigar that we brought out. It's been out for about 5 years now, 4 or 5 years. So it's an Habano Ecuadorian wrapper with Dominican, Nicaraguan, and Ecuadorian filler in there. So it's a nice earthy, got a little kind of a natural cocoa taste to it, and cedary, woody. It's very complex. We make everything Cuban style, so we do a lot of complexing, a lot of blending of different countries of origins within our cigars to get very unique flavors and stuff.
This is everything you just said. I was even going to mention the pre-light sniff, like when I just smell my cigar before later, the earth, I mean, it smells like earth.
Right.
You know, and it smells wonderful like that, like freshly tilled kind of wonderfulness. The light on it has a little bit of a little bit sharp for the first couple puffs, and then it almost immediately, like I'm a half inch in, and it's already mellowed out, and this is right at a medium is what it tastes like at the moment. The cedar is very apparent. Also, it has a picture of you
That's
on there.
my silhouette. That's right.
I was looking at this.
So.
Wait, that is him.
Yes.
Wow.
That is me. That's it.
From the Facebook perspective, by the way,
Yes.
you're seeing the exact picture that's on here if you're looking at
Yes,
it.
yes.
That's it.
We're a little further from the camera because we're on location, but we will post a photo of this cigar and what the band looks like, so you can see it up close by the time you're checking out the show. If you're checking it out on YouTube or later, I was going to say that when I took the cellophane off of this and kind of held it to my nose for the first time, the thought that went through my head was it smelled like a Cuban, and I don't know exactly how to quantify that other than that was just what it reminded me of, the nose to the brain, you know?
At the risk of sounding a little bit silly, this has a very classic cigar kind of flavor, and I notice a lot of Cuban cigars that I've had have that quality to them. Some of them have more of this or that, but this has very, like, when you just expect what a cigar tastes like, this has a lot of that quality.
Sort of a classic tobacco.
Very classic, cigar kind of flavor.
Earthy, but there's at least, and again, I'm only part way in. You're a little ahead of me because you believe in starting the research early, which I think
did.
is very
It's picking up,
commendable.
actually, and see, I'm this far in, it's starting to pick up the mocha flavors that you mentioned.
Right.
Almost like a coffee and mocha
nice,
kind of flavor.
rich,
It's really nice.
mocha espresso type taste. That's correct.
What I like most so far is I am not even an eighth of an inch in, and I'm already getting complexity. So many cigars, even some of my very, very favorites that have wonderful complexity, they don't get there until the first inch
don't
or
develop
so.
for a while,
It's more of a single note, and you enjoy that, and then as the cigar kind of warms up, you get more of the complexity. This seems like it's maybe more complex right off the bat, so nice, very nice.
Thank you,
Now,
thank you.
Manny, you also brought us over some rum.
I did.
and
With a good cigar, you have to have a good rum, a good dark rum.
telling you that, Ian.
So.
What is this rum that you
This
brought?
is a Havana Club 7 years. So it's a Cuban rum. It's the one that's famous in Cuba, the Havana Club, and it's in dark añejo. So nice. Kind of has a little buttery taste to it, a little sweetness,
A little molasses kind of
a little
on the
molasses,
end.
rich sugar. Made from Cuban molasses.
Yeah,
There's Cuban
That's
sugar cane.
fantastic.
So it's a great drink.
And
Goes
this-
very well with cigars.
This is not one you can buy.
No,
on
you
the
can't
shelf,
get this
can
at
you?
the local liquor store, unfortunately. But if you travel to Cuba, you can bring it back, and in other parts of in Canada and Mexico and other parts of the world, you can find the Havana Club. But currently, it can't be bought here.
Yeah, it is, at least as of this moment. Check your watch. Legal to bring it back from
Correct,
Cuba.
correct.
For
It is
personal
now.
consumption. yes.
Exactly.
So, well, I have some Cuba questions for you, and
Of
obviously we
course.
want to find out more about the actual launch of your your cigar line and what it meant to open up this lounge, and then we want to really get some questions about, because you've been so involved in the blending and looking for the different flavors. So I really want to ask you a bit about cigar blending, which I'm fascinated by.
Yeah, it's an art. It's an art.
That's something that I would like. I want to be able to make a lot of money someday so I can retire and just as a hobby
Right.
blend tobacco, right? Just have enough money that, that one didn't work. Okay.
Yeah, in the worst case, you still have a cigar, right?
Right, exactly. What is it your friend said when you were trying out your home brewing for the first time?
Oh, yeah, that was one of my favorite quotes. I said, what if I brew a bad beer? And he goes, well, if your beer tastes great, we're going to enjoy your beer and get drunk. If your beer tastes bad, we're going to get drunk.
So,
There you go.
it kind of works. Speaking of
Silver
beer, by the
lining.
way, we will be trying some very tasty brews on the show today, or we hope they will be tasty anyway. Ian, tell me what you brought along, because you brought along the bomb.
Oh, well, I brought along a Divine Reserve, a St. Arnold Divine Reserve 17, and one of their Bishop's Barrel 16, and I'll have more
Okay.
details on that in a
All
later
right.
segment.
Well, I brought us a couple of interesting things. Another Houston beer, a limited release from Eighth Wonder. It's called AstroTurf, and it is a dry hopped cream ale that's available for only a limited time. So we'll be trying that, as well as something brand new from Stone called Vengeful Spirit. It's an IPA. Yeah, my chimes are going off. I don't know how to make them
Pretty
stop.
excited about that.
There'll be a lot of chimes on this show as we try to figure out. I'm new to the world of electronic phones. They baffle me.
It just keeps going.
Yeah, I know. So we're going to take our first break. We're going to come back. We're going to try some beers. We're going to talk more about what's going on here at El Cubano. Plus, I've got the details in case you haven't seen it. If you're a craft beer lover, Anheuser-Busch is mocking you. And we'll talk about it when we come back at Smokin' and Toastin'. How did you get it to turn off?
It just kept going.
I kept hitting buttons, nothing.
It came up with a little tab up here, and I finally pushed that.
Oh, I bet that's it. Yep.
I don't know. I tried the same thing you did, and it wouldn't stop.
We're professionals, folks. Professionals. So, yeah. So in between the segments, by the way, the Facebook Live keeps rolling. So that's when we like swear at each other.
There you go.
All
There
that
you
kind
go.
of stuff.
Right.
At least you're having fun. You're having fun.
So
Okay.
hopefully that picks up enough ambience from us just chatting.
Yeah, I think it should.
I don't think it'll be a problem.
I think it should. So.
And if not, then they'll hear us clearer. I love these lighters. These have such a great.
Yeah,
Oh,
those
I
are
know.
great little
That feels
tabletops.
awesome. You know?
So if you take one of your typical like cans of butane, does it take like about half the can?
No, it doesn't take that much. It's
Because I have one that's just a 3-jet, but it's
Right,
smaller, and like
right.
it seems like I refill it like
Fill
every
Yeah.
couple of hours.
well, a lot of times people over flame. They have too much flame and stuff. You don't need that much. You kind of, you draw the flame
wanna
into the
toast it,
tobacco, not so much. Once you toast it and kind of put the flame on it initially, after that you leave a little separation and then just kind of draw the flame and the heat into the tobacco to finish lighting it and stuff.
I am really enjoying the combination.
Anyway, Adam, I did not give you the show sheet.
Oh, thank
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good combination. That's why I
Yeah,
wanted to
that's-
share
I
that
love
with
one
you
of the things I
because-
love
Here's
doing
yours.
is when you go into a cigar shop, is turn me on to something.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
When you have someone tending the humidor and just say, what do you
Exactly, that's very
suggest?
important. That's their job, so they need to kind of know and kind of ask about your past cigar experiences and what you like and what you don't like and different brands and things like that you smoke. Especially here, we try to, I'm not an expert by any means on the brand name cigars, but I've smoked quite a few of them over the years, and I can kind of compare. And then if somebody likes
if
a
you
certain
like this
brand,
sort of-
you're gonna or you
yeah,
like this
style,
taste
cigar,
or
right.
style, then you're gonna like this one that we make, and that's why we make such a variation, because we only carry our brand. There's a lot of variety out in the cigar industry, so we want to try to capture as much of that as possible, so that when someone comes in and says, I smoke such and such cigar, I can say, well, try this one. It's going to be something similar.
And
in
we'll go back
flavor,
over some of
taste,
this in the
stuff like
segment
that.
too. That's good.
Yeah, we will sometimes rehash conversations when we talk about interesting stuff. Do you have a water by any chance?
Yeah, I'm going to get
Oh, I can grab it.
I got it.
Hold the mic up a little bit closer, because it like falls back a little bit.
Am I fading out?
Yeah,
fading
yeah,
out?
sometimes
Fading
you
out?
like,
Fading
come
out?
back, because you get comfortably.
I get all mellow with
Like a
it.
professional singer on the.
That's right. Well, if you were running the soundboard right. Oh, come on, I'm just teasing.
But I had it perfect, and
Hey,
I
at least
messed
it's
it a
here.
little bit. So.
What's that?
At least he's here.
True. True that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Adam, are you ready to rock?
Yeah, ready to rock.
I had to pour a little water on it.
Here we go. Ready? Welcome back, my friends. It's Smokin' and Toastin'. We took the time during our break here to try to figure out how an iPhone works. Apparently, you have to swipe stuff to the
Up
right or
and
left,
down and
up
sometimes
down. Yes,
sideways.
Sometimes sideways. So, anyway, we're back. It's Smokin' and Toastin'. This is the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We're smoking some very fine hand-rolled cigars today as we are live from El Cubano Cigar Company in the wonderful city called League City, Texas.
Yes.
And we are very excited. Manny is here with us from El Cubano. We're going to talk a little bit more about the cigars and and the process of blending, which I'm really fascinated by. But I wanted to mention that our sponsor is B&B Butchers, and they are a fine, upstanding establishment. Except for Jeremiah, who can be questionable at times. But beyond him, it's a great place to go. And he's actually a wonderful bar manager, does a fabulous job keeping things stocked that you have and have not heard of. Let's just put it that way. And one of the things I love about B&B is when you go to the bar and you sit there, their bartenders are so knowledgeable. If you say, I want to try something new, here's what I like. Boom. You see that a lot in cigar stores, and we'll talk to Manny about that, about how they do that here at El Cubano. But you don't see it as much, I think, in bars, particularly. I mean, you do if you get a really good bartender, and I guess that's what I'm saying is they got a lot of them there.
Well, there's a difference between someone who sits back there and slings drinks and a bartender. Like, a bartender knows his drinks, knows his stuff, just like any proprietor of their shop should know their product. You know, I'm continually amazed when you go into some of the big box stores and you ask a simple question, you realize that the person you're talking to has no idea what you're talking about, and you actually know more about it than them.
Yeah. Speaking of big box stores, by the way, we'll cover this later on in the show, but this has to be some kind of a tipping point for craft beer. Generic craft beer is now on the stands.
That's amazing. I don't even know what to say about that.
Generic craft beer. How can that even be? We'll tell you.
It's kind of like when they put the word custom on production line. On production line items,
right? When it's custom,
or they have a custom model,
right. But it's all we're all rolling right off the manufacturer's.
They're coming right out
it does take me back to I want to say, was it the early '80s when generic foods became such a trend in grocery stores, and you would have the generic aisle, and you could go buy bags of chips that just said potato chips on them. My favorite though were the white cans with the dark letters that just said beer.
That's it.
No second guessing what's in that can.
Is there anything it can't do?
You used to see those a lot in the movies too.
Yes,
like they'd use the generic.
I've noticed, by the way, we'll say this as a side, and then we'll get back to cigars here. But I've noticed that lately, in a lot of the stuff I'm watching, both serialized television shows and movies, the Shiner guys have been getting Shiner beer into the hands of people, and it isn't always like, you don't always see the label, because you wonder, well, if it's product placement you would see the name,
right?
But
right
I can tell it's a Shiner box because I know what that bottle looks like. I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Watch for that if you're watching almost anything, Ray Donovan, anything. I've been watching Ray Donovan, so that's what's on my mind. So
if you watch TV once this week, you've watched it more than I've watched in 2 weeks.
I know you're not a TV guy, but hey, when you do, though, I'm going to direct you towards the right stuff.
Noted.
I'm doing my research. We're live at El Cubano Cigars, League City, Texas. Manny, the address, I'm looking at it backwards, but it's 916,
that is
right?
correct, 916 East Main.
East Main, okay.
Main, right.
And you were in a smaller location kind of next door to
we're
here.
at 904 East Main previously, and then we purchased this building and did a complete remodel of it, renovation of it. It was an old mechanic shop, basically.
Yeah,
so
I was going to say.
That's why we left a couple of the garage doors in and put a glass door on the front. And on nice days, we'll open it up, and we've got a nice little backyard area back there with some picnic tables and barbecue pit and things of that nature.
Barbecue pit. I'm liking it.
I agree with that. I love the feel of this.
Yes.
It really just has a nice, friendly, open feel.
It's much taller ceilings, obviously because of the style of building it is.
Correct.
Much more open than your typical cigar lounge. And, I can see you've got the smoke eaters up there, but, man, I don't see any lingering smoke in the building at all, and I just see two of them. Those two systems and the fans and the heat, ceiling height and everything, everything equated. I've been to a lot of cigar lounges over the years and kind of took little tidbits from each one and then put a little engineering and a little mathematics into it and a little luck probably too, because I'm not an engineer by any means, but it's turned out very good. That's one thing that we've had a lot of compliments on, that you don't smell like cigars when you leave here, and it's a comfortable environment to smoke in and stuff, even when you have 12 or 15 people in here. Yeah, it's nice. Really nice. And these chairs, by the way, are some of the most comfortable cigar lounge chairs I've ever sat in. I don't know where you got these, but I want some.
You want to be comfortable when you're smoking a cigar. It's all about relaxation. That's what we promote. Cigars is not something that you rush through. Something that you sit back, you enjoy, you spend an hour.
That's right. That's right. What is it you like to say, Ian? It's just not possible to hurry up
and smoke a cigar.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
My thought on a cigar, and I like generally big ring gauges, big size
Right,
cigars.
right.
Because to me, it's just a time commitment.
It
it's
is,
like I'm
it
going to
is.
sit down and I'm going to do this. You know,
That's correct. That's correct. A lot of times people come in and say they want to smoke a cigar for 15 minutes, and I say you're not going to smoke a cigar. You don't want to smoke a cigar if you have 15 minutes.
Yeah,
so if
right.
you don't have at least an hour to dedicate to the cigar, then save it for another day or another time when you do have that time available.
That's absolutely true, and I think that's one of the things that people may miss out on. Every now and then you'll have somebody over and you'll have a party or something. You'll furnish people with cigars and you'll see them, like smoke it for 10 minutes and then, put it in the ashtray. And maybe they just are not a fan of cigars. That does happen. But that is not the cigar experience.
It
it's
is
not
not.
about
No.
taking
Not at all. Not
a
at
few
all.
puffs and then letting it go out. I mean, it really is about sitting and enjoying. And that was when I first started with cigars, that was what drew me into it. I was in a very fast-paced job at that particular time. Everything was very hectic, very stressful. I started noticing that if I would sit down at the end of the day and have a cigar, that'd be the first time that I really relaxed that whole day. And so that's what I loved about it, and that's what drew me in. And then I started, getting acquainted with the different flavors and blends and learning to do it. So, going to talk more about that in a moment. But we're going to sample our first brew here. Ian is setting out the cups.
throwing the cups on
Or throwing them on the floor, as it were. This first one is a limited release. I mentioned it earlier. It is from the people that I actually don't know them, but I have a great deal of respect for what they do. The Eighth Wonder Brewery. Plus, they're really super close to my house.
Yeah, I was going to say you could just about throw a stone off your balcony and hit them.
And hit them, yes. And sometimes I do that to people in Discovery Park, by the way. But I try to remain somewhat anonymous about it. So the first Eighth Wonder beer that I ever tried was a cream ale, and not a lot of breweries are well known for cream ales. Most of them, kind of make their mark with, an IPA or maybe a porter or something, that's a little more of a robust kind of a beer. But the Dome Foam cream ale,
that's the first
from
one I tried
Eighth
too.
Wonder. It's just fantastic, and it's kind of what they built their reputation around. This beer is another Eighth Wonder cream ale, and it's a limited release, but this time it's a dry hopped cream ale, and it's called AstroTurf. They're big Houston guys there. They name a lot of their beers after things that are very Houston-ish. They have Hopston, and they have obviously Dome Foam as a reference to the Astrodome, and there's a number of others. But this, I thought, would be an interesting case to try with the cigars because of the dry hop nature. So you were the first to sample. What do you think?
That's called research. It's good. That's very drinkable. It's
good.
quick on the tongue. Like it's there and the whole thing is gone. That's about as summer a beer as I can imagine right there.
I'm assuming it is a limited release, like summer only, and that what we have here is something that was basically still available from the production run.
That's good enough. If they produce this on a regular basis, this would replace some of the later beers that I tend to buy.
I think I like it better
right off the bat.
Yeah, I think I like it better than the Dome Foam. It's a Dome Foam is a great cream ale. Generally, the cream ales are just as you would expect them to be, a little creamier, a little smoother, a little more easy drinking. This has all those qualities, but then the dry hop just makes it have that little tiny bit of craft beer bitterness in a good way that really works.
It does. You kind of feel it on your palate, on the tip of your tongue a little bit as you finish drinking it and stuff, and that gives you that little hop taste and stuff at the end. Yes,
and what I like about it very much is that as much as I love IPAs, sometimes, particularly when you get into the doubles and the ones that are very hoppy, the bitterness of the hop doesn't complement the cigar.
Right.
It actually
It
detracts
overpowers
from it and
it. Yes,
overpowers
it does, it does.
And this, to me, does not do that. It's got, you get just a little bit of that craft beer bitterness that really enhances the taste. But then if you take a puff, it's something that marries pretty well.
What's really interesting, too, is I just took a sip of the rum and then back to the cream ale, and they fit almost perfectly around each other.
They do. They do.
Like, they don't change each other's profile very much at all.
Yeah, you're right.
That's pretty interesting.
It does. It does. The
Because
rum
this
gives
is a
it a
pretty
little
light
sweetness
beer
to
to
it.
stand up to a medium cigar and a rum on top of that.
Right.
Well, this rum is so good. I have a feeling it would pair with just about anything. That's how good
It just
the rum
pairs
that
with
is.
life.
So we'll be, interestingly enough, we'll be pairing the cigars both with the rum and with the beers we're doing today. And then I also have a single malt scotch that we brought along. So we'll have
brought the
chance
scotch this
I
time.
I know. How crazy is that, right?
That is crazy.
Because you were usually the
well, 2
the
weeks
whiskey
ago
man.
I brought the rum.
Yeah, and it messed everybody up. I mean that in the best possible
I did,
way.
however, give it to you as a birthday
That
present
rum,
as well.
oh my God, that was just fantastic. Go back, what was it? Show number 59, I think it was.
Something like
Man, that thing was good. It was just fantastic. So I have learned how to swipe properly on the phone. That's a good thing. We
Making
picked up.
progress. You're making
Yep, we're
progress.
making
there.
progress.
As long as we're moving
A
forward.
lot more. I really want to get into cigar blending a little bit. We have more beers to taste, and of course, some single malt Scotch, which I have worked hard to be able to pronounce properly, and I believe it is Auchentoshan. Is the way you say it. It's an Auchentoshan 12-year single malt. We'll get to that coming up. We're live from El Cubano Cigars in League City, Texas, with Manny Lopez, whose silhouette is on the cigar, and we'll be right back.
I didn't even think twice about it, but I looked at this a minute ago, and I looked up at you. I was like, hey,
That looks familiar.
that's it.
That's branding.
That's right. It's important to have that consistent across all platforms.
Well, when people meet me for the first time, I've seen you somewhere.
I think of cigars.
All right. We don't need to take too long. Oh, let me give you the next.
I do like this. This is
Isn't it
good.
good?
Very
Great.
good. It's fruit turf. I love it.
On the rum.
I think I'm good at the moment, but I'll probably hit you for that after.
I'll take a little.
Get to a cigar.
Yeah. Now I've done it. I pulled out all my all just to get to his done.
All to get to one beer. How you loving that
It is the
card, by
greatest
the way?
thing
Did you
ever.
see the
I
card
love
he
it.
has?
I just pulled out the separator, but it's like it's designed for putting beverages in.
Oh.
And you wheel it
wow.
around. It's this great
That's
little
perfect.
beverage cooler, and it's got
Like 12
this,
bottles
and
or
she keep
something.
them. Yeah, she keep them separated, and then I just put those little freezer packs in with the beers and stuff.
If I got a little room for travel humidor there.
Yeah, it does. And speaking of, by the way, I tucked into here. Haven't shown you these yet.
I haven't seen them live. No.
We just got these coasters done, which are very cool. So we'll leave you some of those, and then I want to leave you some of the flowers on the show too. So we'll leave them.
I saw a picture of this.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it's nice.
Very exciting. Okay. Ready to roll segment 3. I'm going to open with this Anheuser-Busch thing.
I still haven't seen that commercial.
Okay.
I purposefully haven't because I figured we'd have to watch it at some point.
Yeah. Well, I will describe. I couldn't figure out how to bring the audio from it because we're on location. So I wrote out a little thing describing it. So hopefully
We could maybe share it later
that's what I was going to say. We'll link to it.
and start putting incendiary comments underneath it.
All right. Well, this is good. I'm actually really glad you haven't seen it because I want to see if you actually react the same way that I did. Because this. Well,
Do you have an audio?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, that's okay. Let's go through it.
I was going to do that.
We'll add that
but
stuff.
I couldn't figure out how to add it so that we could actually hear it here. So I thought I'll just describe it. So
We'll just put the mic up to it. Won't be the.
you'd be surprised how well that actually works. I remember when the OJ verdict came out. I was at the Buzz, and we weren't affiliated with like CBS Radio News or any of those to have like live news feeds. We just had Lanny Griffith did news for us in the mornings, and so the OJ verdict was coming down at noon. So we were like, what do we do? So we just turned on the little TV in Lanny's studio and put a mic up to the speaker and said, we're going to join ABC News now with live coverage of the OJ verdict. It worked perfectly. Nobody ever knew. Yeah.
I don't know what made me popped into my head too is you remember Colonel St. James?
Yes.
I was talking to him the other day on the phone
Oh my
about
God,
guitar stuff. He
he's-
called me up.
He's like way out there.
I think I met him before. I knew the name when he said it. He's like, "Oh, do you know who I am?" I was like, "You're a radio personality, right?" He goes, "Yeah." But he called me about guitar questions up at the shop. It was pretty
Pat knows
fun.
him really well. All right, ready?
All right, yeah. Can we open with the? Are we live now? Hold on. There we go.
Welcome back to Smokin' and Toast, and it's Program number 61, by the way. So those of you who've been with us from the very beginning, you're gluttons for punishment, and we love you. You're
We're
the
getting
best.
old.
We are. We're getting old. We're brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant on Washington Ave in Houston, soon to be open in Fort Worth. And I'm just going to say one word about B&B right now. Bacon.
Bacon.
Bacon. That's
Manny, have you been to B&B before?
I have. Wonderful.
Have you had the
you had
bacon
the bacon?
appetizer?
It's amazing.
Oh,
It's
my
amazing.
so good.
we can talk about it for hours and have.
Oh, by the way, they also have steaks and all that other stuff.
Yes, and they're
But that
wonderful.
bacon
That
is so good.
Wow.
Incredible.
All right, so I wanted to get to this, and then we'll jump back into cigar blending. Craft beer lovers. I want to see if you respond to this the same way I have. And some of you have seen this. Ian, you were just telling me during the break you have not actually
I have
seen
intentionally
this commercial,
not
so.
sought it out because you keep talking about it, and I want to be
Okay.
totally surprised and completely offended on my own.
Okay, so in the newest commercial for Bud Light, Anheuser-Busch, the makers of Bud Light, has chosen to, I think, mock and insult craft beer fans. It's officially called Banquet, and the spot features this kind of medieval king's court where the king is seated at a raised table surrounded by his, I'm just going to call him his posse. You know how the king always had
Right,
those
right.
hangers
The
on,
entourage.
seated to the left and
Right,
right of him.
right.
And then, of course, there's his subjects out in the room. And then one by one, his subjects bring him gifts in the commercial, right? Jeremy's first. He steps up and offers the king a 6-pack of Bud Light. And the king says, "Jeremy, you are a true friend of the crown." And then he says, "Dilly dilly." And all of his posse and the other people in the room all respond and say, "Dilly dilly," and they raise their Bud Lights, which everyone somehow has by now, right? So then next up is Madame Susan. She gives the king a 12-pack of Bud Light. So first guy has a 6-pack, she has a 12-pack. The king tells her she's an even truer friend of the crown, and he does the dilly dilly thing again, and that's echoed by everybody in the chamber. So then an unnamed subject approaches with this container with like a wax top seal on it, right? There's silence for a second, and the king asks, "What is that?" And the subject proudly says, "This is a spiced honeymead wine that I have really been into lately." And the king immediately says, "Please follow Sir Brad. He's going to give you a private tour of the pit of misery." And so this goon, Sir Brad, comes out, pushes the guy, and the guy says, "I'm sorry, what?" And the king says, well, actually, one of the king's flunkies sitting next to him raises a Bud Light and says, "Pit of misery, dilly dilly." And then the whole room says, "Dilly dilly." And then the Bud Light logo comes up, and the voiceover announcer says, "Here's to the friends you can always count on, Bud Light." So, and I have to admit, after Anheuser-Busch has spent millions, maybe even billions, buying just the kind of craft breweries that might make an interesting concoction like that, I was totally taken aback that they would basically insult the craft consumer. It is worth mentioning that the subject didn't actually bring a craft beer. It was a honeymead wine.
Which,
But
by the way,
I think
is
the-
very hot right now.
Yeah, but I think the point's completely obvious here. So, am I offended? No, it's just a silly commercial. But it does make me think.
Well, it makes me think of bullying tactics where you got to pick on the smart kid because he's smart.
Right.
You know,
And-
I mean, like realistically, and I don't mean to read that far into it, but that's kind of my knee-jerk reaction to what you just said. That's like picking on someone for having taste,
For having a more refined taste.
for
Yeah.
liking something different.
And here's where my brain goes with this. Do I want to spend my dollars? I'm obviously not a Bud Light consumer, so it wasn't really targeted to me, right? But do I want to spend my dollars on AB-owned craft-type beers when they're obviously saying their products are not for me? Am I taking this too seriously? Am I reading too much into this?
It does seem like they're kind of shoving you out a little bit. The other thing too is, what does that say that they feel? How do they actually feel about their own consumers? Like Google Gobble, one of us. Like if you don't drink our thing, you're obviously not worth
Well,
being in our company.
Look, I'm sure what they're trying to say is, we're not a fancy pants thing. This is what friends get together and drink. I mean, I get what the commercial is about. I get it. And I understand even the idea that that's not a terrible marketing position for them to take. But do you have to do it by insulting the same consumer you've been spending millions and millions of dollars to try to get to? By buying Carbach and Wicked Weed and all the other, really important craft breweries that they bought.
It's, and here's the funniest thing is me and you, and what episode was it? I can't remember. We did the blind light beer taste test,
That's right.
Okay. We had 12 different light beers, I believe. Right? Bud Light didn't make any of our top fives.
No, and oddly enough, their main competitor, Miller Lite, made everybody's top five.
Everybody's top five.
Which is kind of interesting.
And all that being said, it was light beer anyway, which is not really my thing, but,
Well, it's an interesting show to go back and listen to, by the way. If you haven't heard the light beer blind taste test, you have to go back to it. And we will put a link in the show notes to the Budweiser Dilly Dilly commercial. It's actually
Dilly
called
Dilly.
Banquet is actually
Banquet commercial. Okay,
is actually the name of it. So
that could be infringement too, because Coors has their banquet beer. They should be thinking about that.
So I will just say, Adam, I did not start the timer on this segment, so you might have to kind of watch where we're going. Thank you. You kind of wave at me when we're getting close to the end. So we're live at El Cubano Cigars, and I guess while we're on the subject of beer, maybe we jump in and taste Stone's newest offering. Stone, known for their IPAs, decided, hey, everybody's doing fruit-infused New England IPAs, they're being called by a lot of people. We'll try our hand at this more sessionable IPA. And so they put out the Stone Vengeful Spirit. And there's a whole long thing I can read, but it's basically got mandarin orange and pineapple in the beer. So, you've already done your research, Ian.
I have been doing research.
Is this my research here?
That is your research. So this has the mandarin zest is immediately apparent.
Yes, it is.
The pineapple, I don't actually get so much.
There's a little trace of it there. I can pull that out.
See, I'm not really pulling that out. But it's pretty nice beer.
Yeah.
Overall, it's very drinkable. I would drink this.
I can tell immediately that it's a Stone.
Yeah.
There's a certain characteristic that Stone IPAs have that's pretty consistent through all their different variations, and I can kind of taste that in there. It's So what do you think? This is a limited, I think.
It's drinkable. Yeah. I think it's pretty good actually for this style, the sessionable IPA. I don't know what the ABV is on this.
It is an unfiltered, and I don't think it's very high, but it is an unfiltered.
I can't read that.
Yeah, I'm going to say 7.5.
I love that. That's their sessionable.
Yeah.
Point right.
You gotta love Stone, don't you?
Yeah, I love Stone for that alone. And what's funny at 7.5, it's pretty darn good.
Yeah, and pretty sessionable
because
the way that it
you don't even get
drinks.
that.
Yeah, absolutely.
How are you feeling about that?
It's got I do taste the mandarin orange. I'm like you. I don't pick up the pineapple.
Yeah, I don't get the pineapple.
But no, it is very drinkable. Got a little hoppiness to it. A little spice to it there. Kind of stays in your mouth a lot longer than the other beer.
The aftertaste definitely lingers.
The aftertaste lingers a little bit more and stuff.
What do you usually drink when you're left to your own devices as far as beer goes? I know you enjoy the rum.
Yeah, I'm not a big beer drinker, so I'm not a good source for beer. I don't drink a whole lot of beer, unfortunately, which I know that's not your show, but I'm not. I'm a little more of a dark liquor drinker and stuff, and I don't like the hoppy taste that kind of spiciness in my mouth too much. So
gotcha.
It's one of the reasons that we do the show, that we do it this broad, because we kind of like to be inclusive. There'll be things on the show if you are a brown spirits drinker. There's a way for us to do some great stuff with that, and we love to talk about craft beers. And by the way, even a future episode, Matthias Horstman from Hendrix Gin has contacted us about coming back on the show, and this time he brought, and you were gone when he brought this in, but he brought that contraption that makes a gin and tonic. The contraption he's bringing this time is some kind of an automobile.
It's a cucumber slicer.
Yes, wow. It's crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
And what did it say in the email? It slices up to, I think, 8 cucumbers in an hour. It's the largest, most inefficient cucumber slicer. And it literally says this in the email.
History,
most largest, most inefficient cucumber slicer out there.
So that'll be coming up in a future episode.
Yeah, it's actually a truck. So it's not like a trailer. It was actually a truck that drives the slowest and least efficient cucumber slicer, because it drives up to 25 miles per hour.
You know, that reminds me a bit of the process of hand rolling cigars. I mean, you can obviously make cigars with machines and make them much faster
Right.
and more efficiently, but that doesn't make them better.
It doesn't. And you can't do what we call a long leaf cigar by machine, because since every leaf is a little bit different, the thickness of the leaf, the shape, the size, things of that. So that's where the art of making cigars really comes into play, and where the craftsman, when you have a master cigar roller that really knows where to put the tobacco when you tear and fill in the voids within the cigar to keep the cigar consistent from the middle to the top to the bottom with enough material and stuff. So it's very important that feel and the placement of the different types of tobacco that have different characteristics within the cigar have to be in certain placement within the cigar so that the cigar
Just
will
the
burn
physical
properly. The
location
physical
of it, yeah.
location of the leaf is very important. For example, many people don't know that on a tobacco leaf, it always burns from the farthest point back. So when you roll a cigar, it's always the farthest point of the leaf is what you're lighting in the cigar.
And that's
stuff.
why you don't want to clip the other. That's why you don't want to light the other end. You don't want to clip the end and then light the clip
Right,
end.
and there's two reasons for that. Number one, because you're turning over the cigar the way it's blended, but also the way the cigar is rolled. If you smoke a cigar backwards, it will actually unravel.
Right, I've had that happen because
if
I
you put
have
a,
smoked
if you
did not
smoke a
know
cigar
that.
back, because the way it's rolled and overlaid, if you smoke it backwards, that overlay will, because there's no adhesives or anything like that in the cigar. A little bit on the end that we use a natural organic adhesive from yucca. It's a you take yucca, which is a root vegetable, much like a potato, very starchy, and we grind it into a powder form, and then we add water and make organic
Pectin.
exactly, pectin to seal just the top to close off the top of it. So
Without
those
changing the flavor of the
without changing
cigar.
the flavor that you don't taste it. And,
Okay.
Exactly.
When we
The
come
more
back,
you know.
When we come back, I want to ask you about the process of how you make a cigar remain consistent in flavor
course,
from
of course.
1 year's tobacco crop to
Right.
the next. Because that's something I've always been, how do they do that? Because the
Right.
tobacco is going to be so different from year to year.
It will be.
So that's coming up. We're also going to taste a little Smokin Toastin, a little single malt scotch coming up. I don't know how I did. I was just kind of guessing based on your cues, but okay. Yeah, I forgot to hit the start on this silly thing.
You learn one thing and you forgot something.
That's right. That's right. Leave it to me. Stand back, folks. I'm a
Push a little
professional.
information this side, something falls out
Yeah.
that side. Like,
You only have so much hard drive in there. Huh?
the shelf is full, apparently.
One of the most obnoxious things anyone ever said. There was this guy through one of the major broadcast companies, one of the ones that's gone bankrupt, that said to Pat, my business partner, one time, he says, I know how to do things other people don't know how to do. I was blessed with a really large hard drive up here. And I said, that may be the single most obnoxious thing I've ever heard anyone say about themselves.
Modern day.
Yeah, that's right.
I wasn't around 20 years ago. Yeah, talk a little bit
Apparently.
about the tobacco
Yeah.
and where they go and how they go.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that, too.
And it's a science. What I try to explain to people is making cigars is a combination of science and art.
Yes.
Those two things have to come together to make a good cigar.
Hopefully that didn't get too cool when I removed it.
It's so pretty.
It is pretty. All right. Let's jump into segment. This is 4, correct?
What's that?
They're still in the fridge.
That'll be in the last segment. We'll
Yeah, we'll
jump
go
to
grab
this. So we'll do, yeah.
grab them in a minute.
This is 4, correct? Awesome. All right, here we go. Smokin Toastin is the radio program that is all about craft beer, fine distilled spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are live at El Cubano Cigars at 916 East Main Street in League City, Texas. And we're here with Manny Lopez, who is the proprietor and oh, nice. We'll be sampling some single malt here as Ian gets ready to pour that bad boy. So,
Beautiful.
So Manny, you're the proprietor of the shop, but what has your role been in terms of the actual manufacture and blending of your cigar line?
Of course, yes. Well, it's a family-owned business, so it's my father and I that own the business, El Cubano Cigars, and so my main purpose within the cigar factory has evolved over the years, of course, but predominantly aside from running everyday operations, of course, is the blending of all the cigars. As I mentioned earlier, we have 19 blends, so we're constantly working on those blends and as each year comes in, different tobacco crops, different temperatures and water and things that affect tobacco in different regions that tobacco is grown in, we have to make adjustments to the blend to keep it consistent year over year to try to get the same flavor. Now, that's just like very similar to wine in that regards, in that, you know, certain years are better than other years because you had just the right amount of rain, the right amount of cool, heat, things of that combination. So by taking those different tobaccos and as tobacco comes in from new production and future years and stuff, as you make adjustments to your blend, that's very important. And that's my main job within as far as the cigar factory is concerned, is blending those tobaccos into the cigar to keep the blend consistent, coming up with new developments, new styles, new characteristics, new flavors, and things of that nature.
I'm curious, when you're doing that, like, you obviously have to have such a deep knowledge of the tobacco leaf itself.
Right.
And I'm sure that before something, like, there's so many variables, like this leaf for this blend is what we used last year. This leaf this year is a little different because even though we tried everything the same, I mean, it's an organic thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what I'm curious about, how much of it is preconceived? Like, you already know, okay, well, this leaf turned out this way, so I know I have to do different things to make that happen. How much of it is that, and how much of it is getting your hands on the leaf?
It's a combination of taste and feel of the tobacco and look and smell and strengths and things like that. So it's an experiment, basically. You're taking these different tobaccos, and as you develop a blend, you know, sometimes some of the blends that we have in the humidor have taken me a couple of years to develop because it wasn't quite what I was looking for the tobacco from the regions that I was using and stuff. So I wanted a certain taste that I know I can get when I combine these certain regions, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted, so you have to make adjustments. And other times, you know, you're lucky, and the first time you put it together, it just falls into place. But most of the time, it's a trial and error, and you're just taking the different leaves, and you're playing with different combinations of a whole leaf, 3/4 of a leaf, a half a leaf, things of that nature. And because the leaves are different in thickness, they're not all the same thickness, of course. It's just like an orange. You know, sometimes you buy an orange and it's real juicy and you know, it's got a perfect taste, and other times it's a little more dry, a little more bitter and
stuff.
Come
from the same tree.
And it came from the same tree, the same farm and everything, you know. So because it is an organic. There's no two that are the same.
So skill-wise as well, because of all this, do you have some proficiency as being a roller as well?
I do. I roll everything and kind of play with it. I mean, I don't do it on a daily basis. The rollers that work for me, that's what they do every day for a living, so they're a lot faster than I am, of course. But as far as rolling everything, I'll roll. And usually even each day, usually once a week, we'll change the size of the cigar and maybe the blend, not always the blend, but always the size. And I'll roll a cigar that day before we start. Usually on Mondays we'll start with a new size, because since so much of it is done by feel, you can't jump from one size to, you can't make a Corona one day 42 by 6.5 and come back the next day and make a Sublime 54 by 6.5, you know, because the feel is completely different in your hand. So you want to stay with that same size as a roller the entire week. And the large factories, the roller will roll the same cigar for their whole career or many years consecutively.
Like that's
all they roll is that specific.
Okay.
Exactly. Unfortunately, we're a boutique, so in the good regards is that all my rollers are master rollers, and they have the ability to roll any size cigar, but to make it consistent, we try to stay with that cigar that whole week, the same blend and the same size for the entire week.
And do you find that you have certain rollers that you would lean towards for certain sizes? And
oh,
things
without
like
a doubt, without a doubt.
Obviously, they all have proficiency in all of them, but some of them are going to excel at different areas.
Without a doubt. Some of them are better on a smaller cigar. Some of them are better
being able
on
to
a bigger
recognize
cigar and things of that nature and stuff. And you have to kind of, and each cigar, I can smoke one of my cigars and know which cigar roller made it, even if I wasn't at the factory, because they all have little different techniques. And they all roll a little bit different and stuff like that. And it's just in the way the cigar feels, the weight of the cigar, the draw of the cigar, the way it smokes, and all that is different from, because each person puts their personal touch, because again, it's art. Not every painter paints exactly you can give them the same painting to paint, and they're all going to paint it a little bit different in the same materials.
Manny, where do you come down personally on ring gauge? Are you a fan of the bigger ring gauges with more different kinds of tobacco, more room to experiment, or are you a fan of maybe narrower ring gauges where you've got a little more focused tobacco experience.
Ideally, I like to smoke cigars from 50 to 54 ring gauge. That is my favorite size. So you got
medium to large.
Right, medium to large. So you got the Robusto, which is a 50 by 5. You got the Toro, 52 by 6. You have the Piramida, which is the Torpedo, 52 by 6 also. And then you have the Sublime 54 by 6, and then we make a Gran Torpedo that we call it, which is a large torpedo that we make in a 54 by 5, 6, and 7 inches. So that's predominantly what I like to smoke. I like the way it feels in my hand. I like the way it feels in my mouth. I like the time that it gives me as far as smoking pleasure. So it kind of brings everything together for me.
When you are sourcing tobacco,
yes,
where do you actually go to the fields?
We do.
Make trips to the Dominican.
We do make trips, and we have co-ops that we've been dealing with for many years that they bring their tobacco in together in different co-ops and stuff that work certain regions of different countries and things of that nature, and we'll buy from those co-ops and stuff. So the tobacco we're lucky that we have good sources for tobacco because, again, that's very important. You have to have good ingredients. No matter how good a cigar roller you actually are, if you don't have a good ingredient to work with, you're going to make an inferior product.
That's got to be a very important
That's a very important. It really is. And as a small boutique manufacturer, you're a little more limited on that because you don't have the powers that the large manufacturers do. So in that sense,
some of the large guys come in and buy out all the tobacco?
Oh, without a doubt, they'll buy out all the fields and stuff like that. But luckily, we have groups of farmers and, like say, co-ops that we've worked for many years. So they always leave a little bit for us in case one of the big boys comes in and buys everything. We always have enough to make sure that we take care of our customers and stuff.
That's the relationships that you were talking about.
Those are the relationships that you make over a friend. And we're business associates, but we're friends more first and foremost.
Ian, we're going to see how this cigar pairs up with some 12-year-old single mom. This is Akintoshin.
I want to point out as well with my cigar that your cigar has remained consistent this entire length of it so far. Mm-hmm. It hasn't really developed past the first half inch, but that being said, it was a complete complex cigar.
Flavor. Yes, absolutely.
Almost right from the start.
And that is, and a good cigar is going to do that. The beginning of the cigar, the first 5 minutes of the cigar is always going to have a unique taste to it. Mm-hmm. That's inevitable and stuff. But after that, you want to keep the flavor consistent and the same. It's just like the beer. It doesn't taste any bitter. The top part of the beer doesn't taste different than the middle or the bottom part of the beer, to my knowledge.
Well, and I've noticed this either blending or rolling, I'm not sure, and probably a combination of both, but I've noticed some cigars, as you smoke them, they develop, but some of them load up, too. Some of them load up and get more bitter or more this or more that, which is not really bad, but sometimes when they're more bitter, you can get to this point in the cigar and go, okay, I'm done with that one, whereas this one, I'm still going.
And a lot of times, the manufacturers have a tendency to rush product, and that's one thing that's very important. When you use a natural product, you have to age it. You have to go through its proper process. You have to let Mother Nature do its work. There's things that you can do to speed up the process synthetically, which we don't do. Everything we do is natural, organic. It's gotten all the tobacco we use is no less than 2 to 3 years old. After we roll it, we put it through about a 6-month process of different steps that we put it in. So on average, when you're smoking one of our cigars, you're looking at about a cigar that was made 4 to 5 years ago on average and stuff. So that time to let the tobacco marry and marinate and blend with all the different flavors, just like you do with a good scotch or whiskey or rum, letting it sit in the barrels and letting it go through its process. You have to do the same thing with the tobacco, and a lot of the bigger manufacturers, they're all about numbers. They're about pushing, just like in beer, the big manufacturers are pushing that product out because they've already got it sold, and they're looking about today. Being a boutique manufacturer, we don't have shareholders, and things of that nature that we have to keep happy, so we do it to our specifications and our requirements and what we're like. And if a cigar is not ready when I bring it out, it stays on the shelf and goes through a little bit more aging and developing and stuff like that because it's not ready yet.
That says a lot. So if you want, you don't have to carry this bottle home. I will take it with me.
That's good to know.
This is delicious.
That's good to know because I brought in the equipment for the recording, but think how much lighter my load would be if that bottle of Akintoshin wasn't in there. I bought this actually when I was on a family vacation in Florida, and I knew there'd be lots of brown spirits consumed, and I thought, it'd be fun to have a single malt down here by the beach. And so I found that in one of the local shops there. Had never tried it before. Actually, wasn't familiar with this particular brand at all. Although obviously they've been around for a while, and I did a little research after the fact and discovered that they carry some weight. But this is a 12-year single malt, and real quickly, just give me some of your impressions of
So my impression is very smooth. It's very round tasting on the tongue. There's a lot of oil kind of mouthfeel to it, which I really enjoy because it tends to linger, and you feel that in your mouth after you take a sip. A lot of dark fruit and cinnamon. And I don't know if the cigar is influencing that, but the cinnamon, and I've had this scotch before, it's quite good. The cinnamon is really popping out right now.
Yes, I think that could have something to do with the cigar.
Right, it seems like that, or the rum might have something to do with that too, because rum has those molasses sugar kind of
sweetness and stuff,
kind of flavors too. So maybe I'm just more attuned to it. But this is so good, and I'll take care of this bottle for you.
Good job.
That is so interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To blend in.
No, it is, and we'll talk about in the next segment about the different leaves and what their purpose is within the cigar.
Yes.
What's very unique is that these different leaves are all found on the same plant at different growth levels, but they have completely different look and feel and different characteristics.
And I've heard that
the
too.
top leaves get more sun.
The top leaves get more
sun
sun. That's
and-
right, and that's your ligero. That's your dark,
Right.
your dark oilier tobacco gets the most sun. And you have on wrapper, you have sun grown, and you have shade. Where you cover it up and things of that nature because you don't want it to darken and stuff like that. And that actually elongates the leaf because with the leaf, when you put it under basically it's a cheesecloth that they put over the field, the leaf actually extends looking for sun.
Trying
so,
to find the
it'll be
sunlight,
a wide leaf and then it'll kind of narrow and lengthen and, because it's looking for that sun and stuff. Just like a plant leans toward any other plant, because it is. What I tell people, it's not overcomplicated. Tobacco is a vegetable, basically.
Right.
It's a leaf. It's a vegetable. Just like a collard green or a mustard green would be. They even look very similar when you look at them.
Flavor? Like I know with wine, they control the water content very much, like on the grape leaves or on the grapes themselves.
Right.
Because if you starve them a certain amount of water, then they tend to have more intense flavors, things like that. Do you end up doing the same thing?
Yeah,
with
to a
tobacco?
certain degree. And the biggest thing about tobacco is that you're taking within the plant, if you have any dwarf leaves or any leaves that you can tell that they're not going to mature properly, those are taken off the stem, prune them immediately because you don't want them to rob any of the nutrients. The same thing within the tobacco field. A properly maintained tobacco field will have no grass growing. I mean, it's all taken out.
It's all pulled out,
Pulled out
So
because
nothing's pulling those other minerals
and
and
the nutrients out of the soil. And what's unique, a tobacco plant, about 120 days is the growing period, but the average plant is visited 175 times in that 120 days. So it's very labor intensive. Everything with tobacco is very labor intensive.
I just want to point out, by the way, Facebook Live, this is why you see the show on Facebook Live, because this is all between the segment stuff. It's great. It's great.
Exactly.
All right, Ian, do you need to grab that beer? Or,
Yes.
Did you have a restroom?
Yeah, it's right there. Just to the left of that water cooler.
yeah, careful with that edge there.
Sneak by you.
Uh-huh.
I am planning on gouging my knee on that at some point.
So, but yeah, in those regards, from... And that's what people don't realize a lot of times. Well, why does a cigar cost $8 or $10 or $12 or whatever it may be? It's that there's a lot of time that goes into it because, you start with the seeds in a little Dixie cup. And once you get a certain height, from there you're actually planting them in the field. They actually flood the field. And they run a string across the field that has like a little knot. And at those knots, you're taking those seedlings and planting them right there so that your spacing is proper. Then after that, you go through that growing period of, like, say, the 120 days or so, approximately. And then after that, the leaves are picked kind of like coffee beans when they're ready. They're not picked until they're ready. You don't take all the leaves off at one time when a leaf is ready. Then after that, you have to sow the leaf. You have to hang it. You have to get the ammonia and the chlorophyll out of the leaf. And that's done when these big cedar barns with open air and just letting air go through it and get all that chlorophyll and ammonia out. Then after that, you actually start the fermentation process where it's called a pilon. So you actually lay the tobacco on the ground, and it's like a big compost pile.
Right,
basically.
it's like a big
pile of
leaf.
leaf. That's right.
Yeah.
But because it's fermenting and composting, you have to manipulate it because if you let it sit too long in one spot, it will actually rot the leaf. So you have to manipulate it and keep it moving.
It's just like when you're fermenting alcohol. There's a science to it. You don't just let it rot, basically.
Right, and then after that, it's packed a certain way in the bales, in tobacco bales with burlap sack and palm fronds and stuff in there to keep the moisture within the tobacco. And then from there, it's shipped to whoever's going to manufacture the cigar. And then you go through your process of rolling the cigar. And then each manufacturer, after they roll the cigar, they have their techniques and stuff that they use, to let the cigar develop and let it marry and marinate and things. So it's a very time-consuming one. In farming, probably, the most complex farming and amount of time required to produce your product of any other
grown crop. Yeah.
Grown crop. Because the wine, once you stomp the grapes and you put it in the barrels and stuff, it kind of sits. The tobacco, you're moving it every day. You're working with it every day, basically.
That's so cool.
Okay.
All right.
I'm pretty sure we've had this one before.
Okay.
So I'm going to set that one aside, even though I would love to have it because it's delicious.
Well,
and if
nothing says you can't have it at the end.
It's a great shot. It's got a nice little peatiness.
It really is nice.
Feel a little bit in your sinus, when you taste at the back of your palate, on the back of your tongue. You don't really taste anything on the front. Everything's in the weird part of your mouth. Is what I'm feeling and stuff.
And then the mouthfeel, that oiliness that just kind of gives you that little coating, really nice.
That family get together. My favorite part of it was at night. Once all the organized activities and stuff were done, everybody would just kind of gather. There was a pool, and there was this outdoor tiki bar kind of by the pool. Everybody would gather. We'd bring all the beers and the liquor out there. I'd sit there and smoke, one cigar after another, and just everybody's, laughing and
it gets me in my house.
There you go. That's important.
Yeah. That's always the best. My brother, when we go visit him, my older brother, you haven't met him yet, but he has a bar in his basement that he's built up. And it's really nice. We go downstairs and have martinis and everything else.
I think I'm all right.
Would you mind doing the pouring as well on this? It's just easier.
I did relit once, which I'm going to mention here in a second.
I haven't relit. I tended one small little spot, and that was it.
I might have to.
But mine's gotten close, and then I just puff it. It comes right back.
All right, so Ian, I'll do Welcome Back to Smokin Toastin, and then you can.
We're good to go.
Sound effect.
Yeah, I'll sound effect, and then.
It was pretty nice. The first pops it open and.
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool.
Yeah, that cigar was actually rolled in 2015. So,
nice.
So we're getting.
All right, we ready, guys? Final
I
segment.
don't really knock the ashes that much, but I'm going to end up wearing them.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with wearing them either, by the way.
Except for like one of our first.
Depends where you are.
One of our first shows out, we did.
All right.
I'm sitting there chatting. I don't know what possessed me to wear this pure white nice shirt.
Yeah, I know.
Which now has a cigar,
a little hole in it. Yeah, that happens sometimes. That's all right. Those are battle scars,
Right.
Yeah, I like
chicks dig scars, That's
all right, Adam, we ready? Welcome back to Smokin Toastin. Is that your cue, Ian? To do this?
Sorry, I was a little late.
Off the top.
We are live at El Cubano Cigars in League City, Texas, and we are brought to you by B&B Butchers at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston. Great place to eat steak, great place to have bacon, and a great place to drink as well. They've got a fantastic bar. Manny, I wanted to ask you, we have had a chance to talk a lot about cigars, and I'm just loving how much I'm learning from you on this. This is so
one of the things that we offer that the average cigar store can't offer because they don't know the process of making cigars.
Well, you're right. They may have guys that are very experienced in, helping you choose a cigar.
Right, and smoking certain cigars.
But they haven't maybe been a part of this process of actually making them.
Especially if it's an everyday. It's one thing to go and visit a factory for a week and spend a week down in Nicaragua or Santo Domingo and stuff, but it's another thing when you're in there every single day and seeing things. And us that have years and years, we have over 200 years combined, maybe 300 years combined of knowledge within it, and we still learn new things every day and stuff, So
now your family came here from Cuba, is that
right? Correct. That's correct.
And what do you remember? What year it was?
In the 60s. Yes.
In the 60s,
right? I came over in the 60s.
When so many people escaped.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
Okay,
after the revolution.
So you obviously have a background in Cuban tobacco.
Correct.
Cigars. Correct. Your cigars you're rolling now, I'm assuming your tobacco is probably from all over, right?
Right, it is. It's from all over. It's Cuban seed predominantly, but it is grown in Central and South America predominantly, Nicaragua, Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, Honduras, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, and we actually use a little Cameroon out of Africa, some Indonesian, a little Colombian, a little Peruvian, so a good blend of different tobaccos from all different parts of the world. And that's one of the things that when I did this, that was very important to me, because I kind of always grew up, with the knowledge of Cuban cigars and the characteristics of Cuban cigars. And what I found is that the thing that's unique about Cuban cigars is the complexity. And the reason that they're so complex is that you have many regions in Cuba that grow tobacco. There's about 6 different regions in Cuba that grow tobacco, and each region has completely different characteristics. Mm-hmm. You go to other parts of the world, they may only have 1, 2, 3 regions that grow tobacco. So that's kind of why Cuba is the mecca of cigars. Unfortunately, the quality of Cuban tobacco has gone down, and that's, because there's no capitalism, of course, so there's no incentive to make a better product. We're kind of working on your reputation from over the years and stuff like that, and that's why cigars from other parts of the world have kind of surpass Cuban cigars, because you've got capitalism, you got an owner that's involved like we are, you're hands-on, you want to make sure you're putting a quality product for your customers.
Right, so at this point, and that was one of the things I wanted to ask you, at this point, do you feel like you can get as good or better cigars from tobacco that's not grown in Cuba?
I do, I really do. Now, I think you have to blend multiple countries in order to do it, but without a doubt, and that's what I think we've been able to accomplish. And you're smoking cigars that were made in Texas, so if somebody tells you, hey, you smoke us, and that's funny, because a lot of people come in for the first time and they know that we make the cigar here. We explain that to them, and they kind of have a premonition that the cigar is not going to be good because it's not made in Latin America and stuff. And it's, it doesn't matter where the cigar is made if you're using good quality product and good quality craftsmanship.
It's in the ingredients.
That's right. It
Tell
really
me
is.
again what exact cigar this is.
Okay, that's the 409 that you're smoking today. So it's a copper with my silhouette, copper label with my silhouette on it. And one thing that's very important in cigars is the different types of tobacco, and something I want to bring up is that you have different tobaccos within the cigar that have different characteristics. You have the seco, which is used for combustibility. So of course, all tobacco is combustible, but seco is a thinner leaf found on the bottom part of the tobacco plant, and predominant use is for combustibility. It doesn't have a lot of flavor, doesn't have a lot of oils.
It's about the burn.
It's about the burn. It's what and that, when you roll the cigar, that tobacco needs to be on the outside of the cigar so that it keeps the oilier, stronger tobaccos, which are like your viso, which is flavor and aroma, your ligero, which is strength. Those go in the inner part of the cigar, and that faster burning seco kind of keeps it burning evenly with those oilier tobacco. And then you have your capote, what you call your binder, which is a low grade wrapper, and then you have your outer wrapper, which is the most prestigious of all the tobacco leaves, has a very small vein structure. Another thing on tobacco that we do, everything's what we call entubado, where each leaf is actually rolled into a little tube, which allows you to have a very good draw on the cigar.
The draw on this is fabulous.
Yeah, and that's very important in a cigar. If it's too tight, it won't draw, of course, and if it's too loose, it'll overdraw and not burn properly and stuff. So the technique, and when you roll the cigar, that's very important, and the placement is also very important. Most of the time, people think, well, if a cigar is burning funny or sideways and things like that, it's a natural product. Not every leaf is going to burn perfectly, but if it's done properly in the rolling techniques, and that lighter, faster tobacco is on the exterior, and those oilier, darker, heavier tobaccos are in the middle, most of the time it's going to burn well. So most times if you have a cigar that kind of runs a little funny sideways, it's because one of those, in the rolling, one of those heavier, oilier, darker tobaccos kind of shifted itself in the rolling towards the outside of the cigar, and that's why it's not burning properly.
Just out of curiosity, because we found like the fount of cigar knowledge here. What do you prefer? How do you prefer to open up your cigar? Punch, clip,
yeah.
What are your favorites?
I like to cut the cigar, but not overcut the cigars. I like to use scissors, to cut, cigar cutting scissors and stuff that are very sharp and stuff. But a lot of people have a tendency to overcut the cigar. When you roll the cigar, and then you're going to finish. After you put the outer wrapper on, you're going to take a portion of that outer wrapper and you're going to make a cut, which is what we call the handkerchief. So you're actually going to pull back the outer wrapper, And from the same outer wrapper, but a piece of the leaf that's left over, you're going to make like a little handkerchief that kind of goes the 2.5 times around, which is the Cuban traditional wrap on the cigar, 2.5 times around the cigar. And then you're going to cut out a little circle, which is the cap of the cigar. So you want to keep the integrity of even that cap and that handkerchief on the cigar. So when you overcut the cigar, you're actually affecting the construction of the cigar. So it's just, all you're basically doing is opening it up. If the cigar is rolled well and it draws well, you don't need a very big orifice in it to draw the smoke out of it.
Which is why a punch will work.
A punch works very good, and that's kind of a dummy-proof thing.
Right, and I'm always happy with a punch. I like how neat it is, and the draw is generally good. Right. And I've also found if I punch a cigar and it doesn't draw properly, I can always clip after.
Right, you can make adjustments and open it up in case it has a little knot or somewhere. So yes, the punch does that. The main thing about the punch, and why you should, if you punch your cigars, you should have your own punch, because you should always moisten the cigar a little bit before you punch it, even though it's been kept at humidity and everything, but you don't want to damage the outer wrapper. The outer wrapper is very delicate. You don't want it to break. And if the cigar is a little bit under humidified, you can crack the wrapper. It's very easy. And so if you kind of moisten it a little bit in your mouth a little bit before you punch it, not over moisten, but just enough to moisten it and punch it and stuff, you avoid any of those problems. So
Manny, the cut.
Yes.
If you're using a guillotine or cigar scissors, on a well-rolled cigar, how far in do you go?
About 1/8 of an inch. It's not very far. Yeah, it's not very far in. Like you still want to keep the crown. All you're doing is opening the crown of the cigar just a little bit.
I have a cutter that has a backing on it.
Correct. The Perfecto type cutters, yes, they call those.
I have to tell you, like out of all the cutters I've ever had, that one has stayed the sharpest. It wasn't even a very expensive cutter. It stayed the sharpest. Yeah. And it's a flawless cutter.
It's a good cutter. We sell them here, and they work very good, and they're good for somebody that's not real knowledgeable. You put the cigar straight in, you cut it, and it's you're not going to overcut. And a lot of them, the ones that we carry here, have a little hole, so if you're doing a pirami, the torpedo, it actually has an area for that little torpedo to go into.
I've seen that before.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't have it. Yeah. Now, I want to bring up, I brought more of a my style beer. Okay. You said you like the brown liquids. This is
a brown liquid.
Definitely brown. It looks like espresso that I have in the morning.
May have the same viscosity as some of the brown spirits too.
That's it.
So what I brought is a St. Arnold Divine Reserve 17. This is a Baltic porter. Now this is a 9.2% beer. I've had this before. This is fantastic, if you ask me.
Yes, very good.
But you'll notice there's a certain what's the word I'm looking for? When you have that Baltic porter, there's a certain sharpness to the flavor, to the bitterness of it.
Right.
It's so good, and then the finish is smooth and creamy.
Very smooth.
Ian, this starts out like a fairly typical porter taste. It's nice and complex, but you go, okay, that's a porter. I get it. And then there's something on the finish that I can't quite describe that is just out of this world. What am I picking up on there?
Burnt caramel.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's
very good.
Burnt caramel, and the finish is just burnt caramel, and I love that about it. It's so good.
Yeah. It's not super hoppy, which I like that.
No, and so it's funny because you mentioned that earlier. Yeah. He loves the hoppier beers.
That's a turn off to me.
I'll drink them okay.
Yeah.
They have to be really balanced, but the malty stuff.
Right. That's amazing.
This is more like what I bring, and this is the kind of beer a lot of times I'll have with a cigar, but I have to be careful with the beer and the cigar, because if your cigar doesn't stand up to something like this, you can bury your cigar pretty quickly.
I can tell you this one stands up magnificently. Mm-hmm. And I do want to get back. We've only got a little bit of time left in the show. I want to get back to this cigar because I wanted to mention that in between one of the segments, I picked it back up and it had gone out. I relit it, an absolute 0 relight penalty. It relit beautifully, nice. Did not get harsh. That's a big deal for me and can really ruin some otherwise really good cigars for me because I have a tendency to talk a lot. You know?
I've never noticed this about you.
I know you haven't.
But I'll take your word for it because I know you speak the truth.
And so sometimes you're having a conversation with somebody and you look and your cigar's gone out. So it's the way that it works. So I love that about this. Yeah. What does this cigar sell for?
That cigar sells for approximately $9. That's $9. That size. Yeah, we have it in about 4 different sizes.
Well, I love it, and I'm going to say one of the things we like to do on the show is we do something called price to quality, and that basically means if you're paying the retail price for the cigar, what is the quality in relevance to the
what
price?
you're paying, right?
Of course, it's very
you
important.
can smoke a really good cheap cigar. It can have a big price to quality. Might not be as good as a more expensive cigar. Then sometimes you smoke a more expensive cigar, and it isn't as good as what you paid for it. So what we say is that a 5 on the scale of 1 to 10 means you get exactly what you paid for. And I'm going to rate this one a solid 7.
That's exactly where I was going to go for this too. Yeah, you definitely get a little more than you pay for, and the no relight penalty just puts it way over the top too. That's such a beautiful thing.
So I want to do something that we haven't done before, and because it is time for us to wrap up the show. And thanks to Adam for engineering for us. Adam Andrus, thank you. On the Wheels of Steel, love it.
Great job.
So we're going to wrap the show up for Radio Brave, but I'd like to do one last podcast only segment because I just have a few more tobacco questions that I want to ask Manny. Is that cool?
Most definitely. That's what I'm here for.
We want to thank you for listening to Smokin' and Toastin', and we appreciate it. And check us out on TuneIn, on YouTube, on Apple Music, Facebook. We're all over the place. And thank you so much for being on the show, Manny.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming out today.
At 916, did I get it right?
That's correct.
916 East Main Street in League City. Come down here and try these cigars. They're fantastic. And by the way, everybody, cheers.
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 Salud.
Salud.
All right, I do want to just come back and ask just a couple more questions. And
Of course.
a bonus segment.
That's one of the things that we pride ourselves on here, like I say, is education, because there's a lot to cigars and there's a lot to tobacco, and people, there's a lot that people don't know.
Well, you've been like fantastic. Just the information. We haven't had somebody who actually makes cigars. We've had some reps and stuff, but it's incredible to have just this fount of information.
Well, thank you. And like I said, I attribute that to being in the cigar factory every day. Because there's a lot of guys that make cigars, but they're not in. They're out marketing their cigars. They're out selling their cigars. I'm in the factory. Every day that there's a cigar being rolled in the factory, I'm in the factory. You know, so those are things, and I sit down and we talk, and the rollers, and when I sit down and we talk about rolling and techniques and different things, and I come up with ideas and they come up with ideas. And like I say, I've got one roller that's been rolling with me since 1959. You know, so I mean, that's hard to find. My dad's been rolling cigars since probably 1954, 1955, you know. So even those guys that have been rolling for 60 years, you know, we still learn new things and new techniques, and we try different things. And why does this work? Why does this not work? You know, let's try this and see what happens, and things of that nature. And, you know, and that's evolving, making your product better. You know, if you stop on what you've done, on your morals in the past, you know, you're never going to have a better product. You know, you might have a great product, but you can make your product super great, you know, or even better than it was the day before.
Well, I have to tell you, you're absolutely right. There's like no penalty whatsoever.
Yep.
Even though I'm down to this much of the cigar, that's like a quarter of the cigar.
The best.
And there's like no relight penalty to it whatsoever.
Well, I was going to say, you mentioned that it was consistent throughout. I'm enjoying the last third now even more. So it definitely picks up a little bit in the last.
Which is when a cigar is supposed to be best, because you're on the back end of the leaf now, which has the heaviest, you know, what I call the artery, because a tobacco leaf has an artery that runs to the center, and then it's got veins that come off of it. Exactly, and towards the back, of course, that's where it feeds all your flavors and stuff come from the back end of the leaf. So a cigar, the last fourth of the cigar is the best part of the cigar. If the tobacco is aged properly and stuff, you know. But if it's not, you're going to have issues with ammonia and different things.
I see you're already rolling, so we're into our bonus segment here, correct? Okay, good.
He just said, you know, this is good. Let it roll.
No, this is great. I love this because we've had such good, and again, encouragement to people to check the show out on Facebook Live or on YouTube, where we post the whole thing, including what happens between the segments. So this is really worthwhile to get some of this amazing information. Manny, how many different lines? Am I choosing the right word?
Yeah,
how many
blends. 19 currently, 19 different blends that we manufacture and stuff. And within those blends, we do about 110 different cigars in different sizes and shapes and lengths and things of that combination.
How difficult is it, or how important is it even? I know when you look at cigar ratings, sometimes you'll see a cigar company will get really rave ratings for one particular size of a blend, and maybe not as good a ratings for other sizes. How important is it, forget about ratings, how important is it that if I've smoked one of your larger ring gauge cigars,
Right.
and then I try a smaller one. How much do you work to try to match the flavor from one side?
I work on that a lot. The biggest issue on that is when you smoke a cigar, about 60% of what you taste in the cigar is the outer wrapper. So on a larger cigar, of course, you're going to have more filler tobacco inside, and you will have more outer wrapper because of the surface area that you're covering within the cigar. But normally on a smaller cigar, the ratio on a smaller cigar, you're going to taste a lot more of the outer wrapper within the cigar and stuff. So, and that is the most flavorful. Like I say, it's the most expensive part of the tobacco leaf. It's the best quality of the tobacco leaf, and it's the one that really leaves the most presence in your mouth. I always tell people, strength comes from inside, flavor comes from the outside.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that's why it makes sense then that sometimes a much larger ring gauge cigar it's not twice the price of
Right.
the smaller ring
No,
gauge
it's
cigar,
not. No.
even if it's twice the thickness.
Exactly,
because
without a doubt.
That wrapper is still the most expensive.
That's the most,
part.
and you have to use basically when you use in your wrapper and the binder, you're taking half a leaf. On the filler tobacco, you're using the entire leaf. On the outer wrapper, you're deveining and you're taking the half of the leaf. So that's why most people don't know this, but cigars in production, half of the cigars you make within the day are going to be rolled right-handed. The other half are going to be rolled left-handed.
I did not know that.
Because everything smokes from the point of the leaf back. Everything smokes with the vein structure to the inside. You don't want the vein to
So you
protrude
split the
outwards.
leaf.
So you split the leaf and you take the vein out of the center. You devein on your binder and your wrapper, and then you're going to roll. When you put them within the mold, you're going to do 5 cigars that you're going to roll right-handed, and then 5 cigars you're going to roll left-handed. So you have to be ambidextrous to be a true master roller. You have to be able to work with both hands.
That's interesting. I never would have even thought of
And
that.
most people don't realize that.
Right-handed
Yes,
versus
exactly.
left-handed, and that's that'd be like trying to cut smoothly with scissors left-handed and right-handed.
Exactly.
Like, just to bring it down to the basic level.
Exactly.
Which is
I can't
difficult
cut-
if you've ever
I
found
can't
yourself
cut straight at all with my left hand. No,
That's right.
It's terrible.
So a good master cigar roller will be able to use both hands equally.
Now, how important in the overall mix of the cigar is the binder leaf? Because we hear a lot of talk about the wrapper, obviously.
Right,
And we hear
right.
a lot of talk about the fillers.
Right.
But binder doesn't get a lot of publicity.
It doesn't get a lot of publicity. It's kind of the unsung hero. It's very important because what happens if you use a binder that is of lower quality and a thinner leaf, it won't hold up, especially on your larger cigars. It has a tendency to break when you're smoking the cigar. Because if you feel a cigar and you kind of touch it right by the fire, you'll see the cigar is very soft. That's the moisture within the cigar. The moisture runs from the heat. So that's why the back of the cigar is going to be a little harder. The part closest to the fire is going to be a little softer. But you need a binder that's got good consistency and material to it, got good thickness to it, so that when you roll the cigar, because your outer wrapper is usually a thinner leaf, so that binder is very important in keeping the cigar from breaking and blowing up on you and stuff, and breaking and stuff.
Right, because they can too. Like I've
without a
had
doubt,
ones that
they
were
will.
ill-treated, and they
will explode on you, and a lot of times, sometimes that's too much moisture. If you over moisturize the cigar, I mean, ideally you want to keep the cigar at about 70% humidity. 70 degrees is the perfect scenario, but like I say, if you have too much moisture, that moisture has to go somewhere. As it heats up and it runs away, it's going to expand outwards and it can blow up. So you have to have a binder that has good mass to it, has good texture to it and thickness to it, but not over thick, because if it's too thick, and then it's going to be too oily and it's not going to burn well. So it has to coincide with your wrapper. Your binder and your wrapper have to work together, so that your filler works together and your binder and your wrapper work together.
If a cigar has gotten too dry,
Correct.
is it possible to rehumidify it
It
and have
is.
it be as good as it was, or have you always lost something?
No, you can rehumidify. It may take 6-8 months in your humidor, just leaving it alone and letting it slowly kind of build back moisture. What's very unique about tobacco, it's a sponge. It'll absorb whatever's in the environment. For example, in the cigar factory, we don't wear any colognes, any perfumes, anything like that,
Right.
because the tobacco will absorb those things and stuff. So it's very important.
Doesn't take much to
It
contaminate.
doesn't take much to contaminate that. So exactly, you want to. I mean, ideally, see if it's always in a perfect scenario, and that's one advantage that you have when you deal with someone like us, that you always know where the cigar is. It's never sitting in a warehouse. It's never in a box on a postal truck or UPS or FedEx truck, at whatever 100 degrees or 30 degrees and stuff. It's always kept at a constant, relevant humidity and temperature and stuff. So that's very important to the cigar. But it can be brought back slowly. Now, if it's dried so much that the wrapper cracked and damaged, then at that point you've kind of lost that cigar. But as long as you haven't lost the integrity of the tobacco within the cigars, and as far as its breaking and stuff, you can bring them back slowly. But the whole thing, you don't want to rush. Cigars, just like you smoke them, you take your time, you smoke them, you take your time to age them, you take your time to humidify them.
I'm finding almost all the time most of the time when I buy cigars, I want to leave them in my humidor for a couple weeks before I even touch them.
Well, I get
a little excited. Me and a friend of mine were talking about that yesterday. I get a little excited sometimes. We don't always do that, but it always seems to just make that cigar smoke better.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the anticipation. Maybe it's waiting for Christmas or
you
whatever.
have a small space. It's one thing when you have a walk-in humidor that's 500 or 1,000 square feet, as opposed to a box that's 1 cubic foot. You can control the conditions in there much more than you can within a large walk-in humidor, without a doubt. So that is important to do.
Your cigar factory is in
Texas City, Texas.
Yep.
Yes.
And so, what made you choose the Houston area when your family?
Well, when we came from Cuba, we were in Miami for about a month, and there was actually some work for my father here in Texas. We knew nothing about Texas other than cowboys, So
there are cowboys in Texas.
But you were expecting that we all drove
that's it, and rode horses, exactly, and rode horses and had oil wells and stuff. So, but no, we came to Texas, and it's been a great place. We love it here. This is our home, Salud. Yeah, I enjoy. So yeah, no, it's definitely. But what I tell people, this is an art. When you talk about, I don't want to get into politics, but when you talk about what happened in Cuba and the revolution and communism and things, there's a lot of things that Fidel Castro and the government took from the people of Cuba. But one thing that they didn't take from the people of Cuba is the knowledge that we had from Cuba and in our art, and we were able to transpose that and bring it here and share what we learned and what my family has done for multiple generations in Cuba, and bring it here and share it with Americans.
Yeah. You brought up earlier the question, you asked it too, right? You picked it right out of my brain, is about the quality of cigars that you can get now versus just the Cuban cigars, which of course were the top of the rock forever.
Sure.
And I've had, I get a lot of people ask me, well, have you ever had a Cuban cigar? And I've had quite a few, actually.
Sure.
And what I've found is, like everywhere else, and I always tell them, I said, Cubans can make bad cigars too,
without a doubt,
and they make great cigars.
That's true.
So it really depends on the cigar you're smoking.
It does depend, and I attribute it a lot to time and science. If you ask me where's the best place to grow tobacco in the world, I'm going to tell you Cuba is the best place, because it is. It's the mecca of tobacco. But what happens when families like mine that have generations of years and experience in making cigars leave that, and they take their science and you add their knowledge, and you add science into it to develop seeds that work better with certain minerals within the soils of where you're planting it and stuff. I try to compare it to wine. If we go back 20, 30 years ago, if I asked you what's the best bottle of wine you can get, you're going to tell me it's a French Bordeaux.
Right.
Hands down. Now you have wines out of California, you have wines out of Chile, South Africa, Argentina, that are just as good, if not better, than anything that's come out of the French Bordeaux region.
Decent.
Even Texas.
Wines,
I was listening today because they were talking about the fires in California and how they're going to affect the grape and the wine business in California. And this is something that I didn't realize, but I heard it today on the radio, is that Texas is the 4th largest wine producer in the United States. Which I didn't know that. I didn't know that either.
Wow.
So.
I just, to wrap this up, and thank you for doing a bonus segment.
Pleasure.
This has
my
been
pleasure.
so enlightening. I love it. To wrap this up, I think it's worth mentioning, and not to in any way make light of what so many Cuban families and cigar makers and people went through when Castro seized everything, and when so many of them became expats and left and resettled somewhere. But in many ways, it may have been what really spawned the cigar era that we are in right now.
Without a
all
doubt.
of those people, as you said,
Right.
he couldn't take away your knowledge and
That's right.
your passion for making
They
cigars.
can take away your land, they can take away your home, but they can't take away what you have in your head.
Yeah.
And as you pointed out earlier in the show, in areas where the government system is more capitalistic, there's even more reason to continue to try to make the product better and better and better.
Exactly.
Because the better it is, the more you will sell and the more successful the business will
Without
be.
a doubt. Without a
And
doubt.
I just think so much of what we enjoy now, cigars from all the different growing regions, it might not be that good if there never had been exiles from Cuba
That's true.
relocating in other places, you know?
That's true.
Well, yeah, there wouldn't be the mass distribution
No.
of that culture, which of course then with goes into different cultures and brings their own culture, and you get that multicultural mash that
Right.
we call America a lot
Sure,
of times.
exactly.
And
That's
it's
what-
amazing the amount of different things that.
That's what makes this country great, is people from all over the world have brought their talents to this country, and this country has opened their arms and accepted them. And like I say, you go back in the 50s, there was no tobacco in Dominican Republic. There's no tobacco in Nicaragua. There's no tobacco in Ecuador. That's all,
It was all coming out
it
of
was all
Cuba.
coming out of Cuba.
Right.
That's exactly right.
Well, this has been one of the most fun shows we've ever done. I want to
Oh, man,
thank you.
thank you very much.
So
That's a
much
huge compliment.
for hosting us here and for imparting your knowledge. And we would really love to do this again.
When anytime, we'll have an open door whenever you guys want to come down. We'll be more than happy. And even if you're not on the podcast, come down, smoke a cigar. We'll talk about cigars. We'll talk about liquor, and and just enjoy ourselves. That's what this is all about. That's what we built this for.
Well, as we wrap up this bonus segment, I just want to say that I'm really excited to head to the humidor.
Yes.
and man, just thanks to everybody here for making us feel so welcome. And please, folks, if you're listening, if you're in the Houston area or if you're here visiting, do not miss the opportunity to come see this, because this is a one of a kind.
Yes.
You won't find this replicated in other cities, at least not quite like this. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of cigar shops, but this is different.
Yeah.
This is not just a cigar shop.
And in
Thank
a
you.
wonderful way. El Cubano Cigars, and this has been Smokin and Toastin', episode number 61, our bonus segment. Thanks again to Adam Andrus for engineering, and thanks to you, my friend. It's been a good show.
It's always good to see you.
Once again,
Thanks again,
My
man.
pleasure. Thanks for coming
Cheers.
out today.
And cheers, everybody.
Cheers, salud.
Salud.
Que la belleza sobra.
I'm reaching for mine.
I couldn't say that if I tried, but
I mean,
I think I know what it means.
health. Salud is health,
Yeah, salud.
because there's an overabundance of beauty already. So.
awesome. That's beautiful. So good.
Oh, that rum is just fantastic.
I
Love
wanted to
that.
share that.
Yeah, I
with
was
you
about
guys.
to get back to the rum, but I had
Now that beer was good. That dark beer, and I'm not
Hey,
a big
guys.
dark beer drinker.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
That
thank
was
you
a-
for
that was
being
a
here. I hope
great
you enjoyed that.
podcast. That was awesome.
Thank
That was
you
a lot,
so
lot
much.
of fun. Thanks for coming out and
Thank
hanging
you
out at
so
our
much.
place.
Yeah.
You need to come back when Manny gets the cookers out. Come back on a Sunday.
Oh,
He
yeah.
mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds
On the
awesome.
weekend and stuff. And no, like I said, we built this. I had a lot of ideas when I built this lounge, and like I said, I wanted to make some things that were unique that you wouldn't experience anywhere else and stuff. It's not a strip center cigar store.
Right. Now, we're good friends with the Man Cave guys.
Yeah.
Does their
They ended up
doors?
closing. Yeah.
Yeah, does that have any kind of a positive impact?
Yeah,
Steve?
of course. They were different.
By Facebook.
They were a
I
more
don't
traditional-
consider
Yeah.
any. As far as